we do have an update from one of your favorites, and that, of course, is Letitia James, as she has decided, I don't know, maybe it's time for a new lawsuit against the Trump administration, and this one is almost theoretical.
If you'll remember, just a few weeks ago, there was that criminal referral to the Department of Justice over potential mortgage fraud and other crimes, that were allegedly committed by Letitia James. And you'd think maybe is the time to be quiet. I've got my own legal issues. No, she's doubling down or tripling down with announcing this new lawsuit where she is teaming up with other attorneys general nationwide. And they are going to go after some of this funding that is being reportedly under consideration of cuts under the budget proposals and things of that nature.
Look, she picked some things in this that I think that some people will go, okay, if they are cutting some of these programs, maybe she picked some that are a little bit more bipartisan, if you will.
Sure.
They're not like just, Planned Parenthood. She's talking about Meals on Wheels and a few of these that most people go, yeah, that's probably good that we're funding those things. That's probably not a bad thing, helping people, helping the homeless, helping people that need food. But again, none of these have happened yet, and it's just to get your name in the lights.
The White House is threatening our way of life. They want to cut Meals on Wheels. They want to cut funds to firefighters. Why? Because they want to cut funds for housing. And the list goes on and on and on. All of these funds and more, we've got to stand up. And that's why Democratic attorneys general will be joining me in filing this lawsuit.
Because, look, midterms are coming up faster than you can imagine. They're going to want to have something to run on. They're going to want to have something for the Trump administration to take some heat.
A lot of this is theoretical at this point. They're talking about things like the Head Start program, funding that could go to Meals on Wheels. She says it directly, Meals on Wheels, but a lot of times these are through assistance programs and things of that nature. So not even a direct funding to that. But the biggest problem here, Professor Hutchison, is that all of these seem to be theoretical cuts that she's targeting at this point. This isn't something that the Head Start program's budget hasn't been slashed. As a matter of fact, currently, it is still in the reconciliation bill that they're putting together. So it's not even like she could point to the fact that it's already been stripped from this reconciliation bill. Now, there have been talks of reallocating, reshifting the way that a lot of these programs are run, because many of these programs haven't been run efficiently. But regardless, as Logan pointed out, these seem, on paper at least, without any sort of deep research into it, does seem to be programs that could be bipartisan in the way that they are presented, that she is stopping the government from cutting funding to. However, there's a big caveat here. This lawsuit is trying to stop preemptively the cutting of funds before it's even been put into a bill. It's even been done through executive order. This is a pure preemptive lawsuit that the Attorney General is trying to, with other states' attorneys general, to do here. And that's not normally how the legal process works in the United States.
Your analysis is spot on. And I think it's clear beyond question that Attorney General Letitia James, as is her pattern and practice, is attempting to create litigation de novo. That is, out of nothing, out of thin air. And there is a legal doctrine called ripeness that prevents the litigation that she is talking about. Now, having said that, it's important to keep in mind that there are district court judges, federal district court judges, that are probably willing to overlook a legal doctrine such as the doctrine of ripeness. Now, what is ripeness? Basically, it says you cannot bring a lawsuit until the facts are, quote unquote, ripe, meaning that there is an actual case or controversy for the court to decide. And so if Health and Human Services is proposing a cut, that does not give rise to litigation except in the imagination of Attorney General Letitia James and her compatriots.
Now, if the cuts do go through, and it is something that they do present, what is the legal recourse there? Then there is a pathway for them to do this, not when it's preemptive, but when there's actually a plan going ahead. Let's say that because look, these are not, with all of the Trump cuts that have happened, it's not like this is shocking that there's a few organizations there that would be listed in this. So what is even their recourse? I'm just curious for, I guess, the right way to do it if these cuts were to go in place.
Number one, if the cuts occur basically because there is a bill that passes Congress signed by the president, then those cuts are indeed constitutional unless there's some constitutional principle that has been invalidated by the law, which is very unlikely because the Constitution gives spending power to Congress. And so if Congress passes a law signed by the President of the United States, in general, it's going to be enforceable unless you can find some form of discrimination or some other basis for invalidating.
They're making the decision on where things go. No one is guaranteed this money.
Precisely. And the president and Congress were elected to do what? To enact policy. And it's not up to state attorneys generals to define what is possible with respect to spending by the Health and Human Services Department.
The other angle to this is when the state's attorneys general bring lawsuits of this kind. What we've seen in this environment is we've seen going to a district judge who then sometimes puts out something called a nationwide injunction. And that's the very thing that the ACLJ is fighting at the Supreme Court right now with our representation of the state of West Virginia. So that is something that we are very involved in. But as that is heard and looked at by the Supreme Court, there is that feeling that you could see a district court judge issue a nationwide injunction on a novel situation like this, blocking any cuts from the Department of Health and Human Services while their lawsuit plays out, which there's no harm yet. So I don't know how the lawsuit could play out in that situation, but it almost feels like they know that this is the time to try a move like this.
I think you're correct, and I think that's a brilliant question. So it's important for listeners to note that 2/3 of the nationwide injunctions issued in the history of the United States apparently have been issued against the Trump administration. According to a Harvard Law Review study, which was published last year, at least more than half of the injunctions issued between 2018 and 2023 were issued against the Trump administration. That doesn't include all of the injunctions, nationwide injunctions, that have been issued this year. So one of the reasons why Attorney General Letitia James is attempting to go after the Trump administration is the judges have incentivized action which is contrary to both the Constitution and to prevailing law.